What's up? In this video, I've got a brief update on what I've been doing with the HTTP server. So as you can see, the code hasn't changed much, and all I'm really doing now is I added this line that says hello back from the server when we get some data coming in from the client that is communicating with our server. On my laptop though, which you can't see, I did change the code uh, quite a bit, where I was able to figure out how to connect to my desktop first off. And the issue was what I thought it was, a Windows firewall thing connecting just or preventing just random connections uh, routing to that port that weren't authorized. So I looked it up and I did some NetSH firewall rule stuff. Not really familiar with that command line interface, but I've seen it around before, and so basically what I figured I could do is I could add some firewall rules to permit connections to this port in particular, 8080, and then when I'm done with this demo, I can remove those firewall rules because I don't want to have a bunch of firewall rules permitting random connections and then forget about them when I'm done with this project and just have those sitting around. But yeah, so what I did is on the laptop script, what I'm doing is I'm creating a socket with the IPv4 family, and it's a TCP uh, type of connection. I'm connecting to the IP of my desktop, which I'm not going to show, on port 8080. And what I'm doing is I am writing out in actual text the body of a GET request, and I am sending it and encoding it in UTF-8. So I did do some research on what GET requests look like. I still want to look through it and take some more thorough notes, but generally to me it just seems like GET requests are raw text that we encode as bytes with some encoding scheme like UTF-8, and there are certain values that you expect to fill in with a GET request, but at the end of the day, it's still just a string that gets encoded in a particular way. It does look like it needs to have the carriage return and line feed escape characters that I talked about in a previous video, so I made sure to include those. But yeah, so right now, let me start the server on my desktop. So we can do main.py. So you can see here it's just waiting. I'm going to go into my laptop now and let me run this script. So cool. So what I did is I just connected to the TCP server, sent some data, which we're seeing here in binary format, and um, then I send this data back that says hello back from the server. That showed up in the terminal on my laptop. So I've officially got the two hosts communicating with one another, which doesn't seem that impressive when I show it in the video, but I'm happy that I can actually send stuff back and forth between the two computers. It's pretty cool. Um, One thing that I just had a thought about in the future was that if I wanted to use one of these computers as like a storage device for the other, or if I wanted to have fast file transfers between the computers, I know with Windows you've got the networking, like local networking thing, where in File Explorer you can have shared folders that uh, other computers can access, and you can drop files and put files in there. But I feel like it would not be too hard to do that myself here with basic stuff, with like images like PNGs. I could just base64 encode the PNG and then decode it on the recipient side, and then I've just got that file now. I could save it somewhere. But regardless, that's beside the point. One thing I'm going to try to do right now is, as we can see, this is a bytes object right now, but I'm pretty sure, let me look on my other screen. Yeah, you could just use the .decode method on the bytes object to decode it back to a legible string. So we'll get rid of these escape sequence characters for the carriage return and line feed. So let's actually see what that looks like right now. So if we do data.decode, yeah, the encoding that I was sending it was UTF-8. So on my laptop side, I'm encoding in UTF-8. Let's decode in UTF-8. I'm going to, well, let's see. All right, I'm back. Unfortunately, when I closed VS Code, I didn't realize that I still had a terminal open that showed my IP, so I had to trim that out of the video. But we're back, and I'm going to restart the server now and see what it looks like when I send that same GET request from my laptop. Hopefully it prints in a more pretty way now. So I'm going to send that. There we go. That's a lot nicer. So the new lines and the carriage returns are getting applied, and now we see it's get host user agent accept and then a new line. So interesting. So this is what I've got so far. What I'm imagining is if I want to implement an HTTP server, I need to do some sort of uh, text parsing, and I need to do some sort of validation on the fields that I parse. So I could use regex to parse out, look for a get followed by some sort of endpoint, and then also parse that line and look for HTTP 1.1, then parse the next line, look for host, and then the IP address, validate that the IP address itself is the one that uh, the server is running on, etc. All of this stuff. So I'm not sure what the best way to do it, but my initial thought is let me just try regex and see if I can parse GET requests and verify that they're correct that way. Seems like it wouldn't be that hard because I could just take these bytes, return it to a string, and then when I work with the string, it's easy to apply regex. I'm not very good with regex, but I'm sure looking online I can figure out enough to get the stuff done. But yeah, that's where this project's at right now. Tomorrow is Friday, so now I have a lot more time. I'll be done with work for a bit, so I can dedicate some more time to this project. I think what a good point to get to would be sending in a full body GET request for my laptop, receiving it on the server here, parsing it correctly, and then sending back a valid response. So that way, we've got our first HTTP request, a GET request, we're able to receive it and send back valid data. And honestly, what might be good is to see if I could use one of the built-in requests libraries in Python to initiate the request, because then I know for sure that the way the HTTP request is being formed is valid. Like the content of the bytes in the HTTP request is valid. If I could process that and then send back a coherent response, uh, I think that will validate that my server-side implementation of the TCP HTTP server is correct. But we'll just have to see. That's really the content of my update video here, but I'm glad I was able to establish a connection, send stuff back and forth between my laptop and my desktop, and tomorrow I'm going to make a lot more progress and start to figure out the parsing logic and hopefully get some more advanced back and forth communication going. But yeah, that's the end of this video. Have a good one.